Okay then. Thanks everybody for attending this afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar on internal auditing. My name is Robert Crosby and I've been working for QMS between 3 and 4 years now. I specialise in information security, business continuity, quality, environment and also health and safety. If you should think of any questions throughout the webinar or during the webinar, please feel free to ask those questions by submitting them in the chat box to the right hand side. What I will generally do is leave it till the end of the webinar and then answer obviously any questions that may come in. Please feel free to ask any questions. I'll be there at the end there to obviously go through those as and when those have come in and been finalised. So today's webinar, we're going to be talking about internal audits and how to perform internal audits and the general purpose of those internal audits. We'll be looking at what an internal audit is, how does it keep your business compliant and help your business generally, what are the different types of audit, and we'll be then diving down into a little bit more detail on planning an internal audit, picking the right team for an internal audit, running the audit itself and recording the results. So what is an internal audit? Generally, it is a scheduled check of your management system to check to see whether it's actually performing as you are expecting it to perform. It's an essential requirement of the ISO standards. No matter what standards that you're working to, internal audits will generally form part of that those standard requirements. And it's a way of ensuring that your processes are being followed and that are being followed correctly. Internal audit checks that are processes that look on processes and making sure that they're accurately documented, correctly implemented, and effectively maintained. Regular audits that are carried out by organizations can really flag up any potential issues, concerns, shortfalls, even before they become generally a catastrophic failure in some cases. But certainly by picking up on those issues straight away, you've got a good chance of actually addressing those issues, finding out the reasons why those issues are occurring, and then you've got more of an opportunity to actually put those issues correct so that they don't cause either damage, confusion, and generally don't cause your staff to be working against your management systems. They're working in alignment with those management systems. As I've said previously, the internal audits that businesses generally carry out as part of the ISO, they make sure that your systems are maintaining compliant with the standard. And when a consultant comes in or an auditor comes in, like QMS, on an annual surveillance audit, generally we'll be looking at your provisions that you've carried out an audit and it's been carried out to a plan generally identified by an audit schedule. I think it's fair to say that the number of internal audits that an organisation may carry out may depend on the type of business it is and the types of risks within that business. Some businesses might choose to carry out more auditing on the production line because that's more imperative to the business because those products go out to clients and customers. Some businesses may choose to audit more of their office processes because they're, for example, a service industry where they're providing services to clients. So different businesses have different needs, and they have to obviously respond to those needs by carrying out effective audits over those systems. I think anybody who are either going down the journey of implementing ISOs or have actually implemented ISOs and they're wanting to obviously pick up more details about why you should really maintain your audits, I think it's fair to look at the benefits of auditing in its own right. So we have various purposes of your management system, each depending on what management system that you're on, each will have a different benefit. One might be to look after your quality management, other ones might be to look at your information security or environment. So I think generally by doing the auditing, they ensure that any goals that have been set out by the organisation and by the actual management system itself, it's checking that you're achieving those goals. Are you improving the business? Certainly your internal audits will generally make checks on various aspects of the management system and will indicate whether you've been successful or not. It should improve communication and understanding of the actual management system itself by getting people involved in the management auditing process. Effectively, people start to become aware of what's actually involved in not only implementing those management systems, but maintaining them at the same time. It'll enable individuals to report any concerns in a timely fashion. So if they spot something, whether it's small or large, at least then you've got a process there to actually record it as part of an audit and actually flag it up so that that can be then communicated across the board, either further down to employees or up to management as part of your information flows. Also, audits will ensure that planned arrangements regarding product quality, service delivery, environmental protection, health and safety protection, they're also there as part of your management system, and your internal audits will make sure that you're checking those and that they're being maintained efficiently and effectively. They provide feedback to supervisors regarding the effectiveness of processes. In some cases, it may be just to confirm that everything is actually going according to plan and that you don't raise any issues as a result, which would indicate a positive, good audit. I mean, I also think it's fair to say that even though you may pick things up in an audit, it's not necessarily a negative. I always find that it's a good way of improving your process. So again, it's an opportunity for improvement, even if you spot something that's going not quite the way that you expected it. And internal audits also ensure emergency deviations don't become common practice. If you are prepared to communicate to the workforce when things have gone wrong, how they've gone wrong, and the things that you're doing to correct them so that they don't go wrong in future, effectively that's where you get an improvement in delivering your processes. So when we look at internal auditing, there are a few principles that actually are connected to when you're doing your internal audits. So if we, for example, look at integrity, confidentiality, independence, evidence-based approach, due professional care, fair representation, they're all indicators that the kind of behaviours and things that you should consider when you're carrying out an audit. I think the old adage is in the profession is that generally you shouldn't really mark your own homework. So as an example, where possible, if you've got a purchasing process that's written up as part of your management system, maybe it's a good idea to get a different supervisor to look at that purchasing process and auditing it. Now, that may not be possible in all cases, but certainly as far as independence is concerned, it's good practice to try and get other people involved so that they're looking over other functional areas of your business and other parts of the standard that maybe they're not necessarily connected to on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, confidentiality, it's a given. You may be auditing some confidential information, training files, personnel files. So I think knowing and understanding about confidentiality and not sharing that information, I think that's a key part of your internal audit process itself. When we're looking at internal audits, we want to look at the actual evidence that we're finding. And again, if you're searching and inspecting and checking on your management system, you're looking for evidence, you're looking for documents, you're looking for quality checks, for example, you might be looking for training records. These are all indicators that will effectively allow you to evidence whether a certain process is actually performing as intended. I think integrity is quite a strong one. We've all got to have strength of character and remain integral in the fact that the things that we're reporting on. I think by letting things go and letting things go under the carpet, as we say, I think you generally, if you're afraid to report things and you are shadowing the actual true fact, I don't think that your staff are going to learn from the things that are going wrong. Plus, your management teams also want to know that actually, if there is an issue there, they want to know about it so that they can can deal with it, so that it doesn't effectively become a massive concern for the organisation. Ultimately, it could end up costing you time, your reputation, and certainly costs. I think fair representation is quite a strong principle within this. I think you are looking at evidence, you are making a judgment, and I think you've got to be fair in that judgment. I think there's a saying from Yorkshire that I use quite often: say things as they are, say it as it is. So I think fairly representing the information and the evidence that you're actually investigating is one of the key components. Make sure that you are fair. Make sure that your staff are fairly representing those facts, those figures, without any preconceived ideas or pre-notions of effectively when they start that audit. Due professional and care. I think we all like to be treated with respect, and I think when you're carrying out audits, that's just part of the process. You've got to be professional. You've got to show that obviously you're there to do a task, and you're only there just to see effectively whether that management system is running as expected. And treating people with respect, looking at documents, making sure that you're drilling down into those documents, being professional, making sure that you're not sharing that information. It's all part of the due professional care. Okay then, 4 aspects of auditing. Generally, when we think about auditing, I mean, you can apply different types of audits depending on the environment or the application that you're looking at. So we've got systems audits, system-based audits, process-based audits, project-based audits, and product-based audits. Each one of them will deliver your audit results in a slightly different way, but I think the main principle is you're looking and checking to see whether things are running in alignment with your management system. System audits as a general will be looking at your management system. It might be looking at your management system's manual or processes if you have them out as written processes. A process audit is obviously following a process from start to finish. So think of a delivery company that delivers cardboard boxes, for example, to clients. It might be that you effectively follow a cardboard box from initial entry into the warehouse right through till it being delivered by a customer, or at least leaving the warehouse. A project-based audit may be part of the quality new product development activity, whereby you follow that project from initial conception right through to final design, maybe prototyping, and it might even lead you then onto sort of the first phase of actual production itself. Product auditing may be just looking at an individual product and following that through your system of that being manufactured. So there are four main aspects of auditing. So, as we've mentioned earlier, the systems-based audit, it's broader and focused on business management systems. So, like I've said, it may be that it's your management systems manual. It may be that you have a set of written processes that, as a collective whole, they will effectively be able for you to demonstrate whether you're following an organized system and also whether you're not following that system. And what it will do generally is, with a system audit, it'll tie into various clauses of the standard. So by following your management system, and you are effectively checking all the applicable requirements, be it quality, environment, health and safety, information security. Each standard will have various different components to it. Some of the standards are actually quite common in the overall, when you actually look at the standards themselves. Some of them have common elements like risk management. When you become more looking at more specialist things, obviously like information security, that has generally a lot more requirements to in order for an organization to comply to those standards. There's a lot more to think about. A process-based audit, just going into a little bit more detail, obviously it it actually focuses on individual processes within it. So it might be a manufacturing process, it might be an operations process, it might be a purchasing process, it might be how, for example, you onboard people and acquire those documents as part of the HR processes. So again, just to reiterate, it aims to check basically the processes of your management system are working in line with how you expect them to be. A project audit, as we've said before, I gave an example there of new project development, but it may be, for example, how you deliver a housing project to a set of clients or an housing association scheme. So by definition, it's a way of you checking throughout the life cycle of that project, from the sort of the initial inquiry for the project right through to the final sign off. That's effectively going to allow yourselves to see whether your project process is working as it should be doing. I think thinking with the quality, there are various clauses within it, and one in particular is design and development. So that effectively will lead into any sort of project audit as far as design is concerned, and that's just an example. And the product audit, as I've said before, think about a manufacturing product, whether it's a concrete paving flag, whether it may be pet food, complementary pet care, it may be even chocolate bars, which is one of my favorite topics. It's basically about looking at those products and following that product through its life cycle, from the raw materials right through to it being packaged and ready to go out to clients or to be put into storage. And again, a product audit is quite a good one, really, because you have various things in there, because you can check on your purchasing process for the raw materials. You can check on your ongoing product quality checks. If you're a manufacturing company, you can check on whether the product during production is actually meeting its specifications. Then you can obviously check whether it's gone into the goods warehouse, whether it's been labeled correctly, and you can also check any consignment notes that are, or collection notes or delivery notes that for items that are being sent out to clients. So there's various things that you can check through all the different types of audits that's just been previously mentioned. So I think when you're looking at audits, I don't think audits will just happen just on their own. As you can probably imagine, it does take quite a bit of planning to do an audit. There are various considerations in there that organizations that already are running management systems will already know. But if there are any newcomers to the ISO arena that are looking into implementing management systems, I think it's very important to understand the actual sort of three concepts that you can see on the screen at the moment. So when we're looking at purpose, we're actually thinking, well, what is the purpose of the audit itself? That'll also rely on what standard that you're looking at. So, for example, for 9001, you're going to be looking at your quality management systems. If you're looking at a 14001 management system, you're looking at environmental protection. So think about the purpose of the audit. Think about the preparation of what needs to be carried out during that audit. Is it purely for compliance, product compliance, customer compliance, legal compliance? And are you looking for improvements as part of that audit? Or are you also looking just to check that things are working correctly as they should be doing? The preparation for the audit itself, again, generally when we plan a set of audits out, we'll have a number of things that we need to do. So, for example, we've mentioned processes and we've mentioned clauses. You might have a total of 10 processes that actually delivers your products and services to clients. Or you may have a set of clause numbers that you run to make sure that you're delivering those products and services. So generally, by planning out your audit schedule, whether it's planned out, you carry out one process audit or one clause audit each month or twice a month, or whether you choose to do it over a number of days within a week. Effectively, your audit schedule will not only plan it and hopefully make sure that those audits are carried out, but they'll also be there to show your employees within the organization your overall plan of how you expect these audits to be carried out in what time frames. Generally, the planning of the audit, you'll want to identify whether it's a half-day audit, a full-day audit, a 3-day audit. What's the start and finish time? Have you allocated enough time in the day to conduct the actual audits itself? And again, for many newcomers, this might be a learning curve for you, but generally, even by attempting to do it and implementing your management systems and then auditing in the first year, it will actually give you a good idea of how you should prepare those audits for the year following. And I think a good example that I'd bring into this is when I've carried out audits for organizations that I've worked for previously, I've always found that sort of December, January time can be a bit problematic for, obviously it's Christmas, people are getting back after the new year, we're getting into the swing of things. So January and December can sometimes be those months whereby we don't have as much time as we normally would throughout the year. And then if you think about holiday times, staff availability, sort of June, July and August, everybody's booking their holidays in generally. So it might be that you have to think about, well, I can't carry out audits in then because number one, there's not going to be a lot of staff available or as much as I'd like, and I can't speak to those staff in order to do my investigations because they're, for example, carrying out production activities or they're doing administration duties or management duties. So I think looking at that internal audit program and being realistic with it is a good part of that preparation. Then there's the resources. So how much time is required to complete each individual audit? Again, are you setting yourself an afternoon to do it, a morning, a full day, 3 days? Are you going to do it over split between a week? Effectively, it's up to the organizations to decide that, but essentially by creating the plan and allocating effective number of resources to it, you've got more chance of being successful in carrying out those audits and documenting them. Who needs to be involved? As I've said before there, if you have holidays, if you have periods of sickness, for example, you've got to be thinking of this all throughout the actual implementation of any audit schedule that you carry out. The availability of people is obviously necessary in order to ask certain questions of certain people and functions. Has the auditor actually been trained to carry out the audit? Again, there are many aspects to sort of carrying the audit out, and that's why sometimes even with organizations carrying out and implementing management systems for the first time, generally we will have people, experienced people there to maybe help assist the auditor. There is also training available for the auditor as part of the QMS offering, which we can go into in a short while. But generally, what you'll generally want is you'll want either a trained auditor or even a set of auditors that are capable of understanding what needs to be done, following the program, investigating the actual processes themselves, and then being able to document it as evidence to say that this is the audit that we carried out. And then finally, what equipment's required as part of the audit. People may carry out audits on iPads, devices. They may actually write it on a clipboard and pen and then write it up. Various mechanisms are available, but it may be up to you to decide and define what equipment's available and make sure that that's available to anybody that's carrying out those audits. Okay. Creating a schedule there. So as the picture there would indicate, this is one of the most easiest ways to create an audit schedule. Look in your Outlook calendars, your Google calendars, etc. You can actually plan your internal audits out over a year quite easily and quite quickly, and actually not only allocate yourselves if you're a quality manager, it'll give you the opportunity to include other members of staff within it if you feel that they should be part of that audit. Outlook's an absolutely brilliant tool for that, and it'll also be very, very clear if you, for example, you decide to introduce color coding, depending on what audits you're doing. For example, you might color code quality red items, you might white color code, environment green items, and then health and safety blue items. And that's just a suggested set of colors just to give you easy availability, and others that are included in that plan within the actual plan itself that they need to be focusing on that particular category. So as I say, health and safety, environment, and quality. By creating a plan, it will also allow you to plan any complex processes that may need to be split up and audited separately. If you've got certain procedures that you want to audit, again, that audit plan is going to be imperative to make sure that on certain dates that's actually being carried out. It's also going to allow you to manage any slippage. So for example, if you can't carry out an audit on one day, well, at least you still know that it needs to be done, and then you can reallocate that to staff on another day. If you've been experiencing common problems in certain areas, your audit plan will then probably indicate that you need to be carrying out internal audits more frequently, and you can plug those into the plan. You may be looking at previous audits and non-conformances, and that might give you an indication that those areas actually do need to be planned as a more regular checks. And as the last point on there, you're always allowed to adapt your schedule according to the importance of the areas to be audited. So as an example, if I was a manufacturing company, I'll use that as an example. If the quality checking was absolutely imperative, let's just say I was manufacturing parts for an aerospace company, it's going to be critical that those quality checks are being done and that they're being successful. So me auditing them on a more frequent basis will actually give me the assurance that those quality checks are not only being done, but they're actually delivering the results that we want. So carrying out a system-based audit, this is just really about getting your magnifying glass and deep diving into the actual process itself. So the screen, as you can see now, it's an example of a clause-based approach, and in this particular example, it's from the Quality Management System 9001. And Clause 8.5.1 talks about control of production and service provision. So really, this is on about making sure that your service delivery or production activities are actually controlled, and it's actually following a planned way of delivering that service to clients. Now, if you look at the example on there, what we've generally done is there's a bullet point list of certain things that in order for this particular organization to comply to their standard and their own processes, they've identified, in this example, 4 main bullet points. And you can see that the highlighted points on there are actually highlighting very specific things that an organization has to make sure that's in place and that have control over that process. So for example, to make sure that these products and services are being delivered in accordance with how the organization wants them to do, for this particular audit, they've selected, they're going to look at daily notes. They've got a computer system and service user folders with information in them. They've also got risk assessments and care plans. So when you're auditing your system in a system-based approach, you can actually drill down and quickly look at examples of these documents, shall we say, and systems. So even at a glance, you can effectively say, right, can I look at my system? Can I confirm that we've got 3 delivery notes for X, Y, and Z products or services? Have we got a computer system and service user folders with information that's relevant to maybe 3 recent jobs that we've done or recent service delivery items that we've delivered to clients? And then you can then look at, for those particular jobs that we've used in this example, can we see that each one of those customers have got a risk assessment and a care plan? So even very quickly, you can start to build up a quick picture. And remember, I think the way that this is delivered for everybody here today, it's a spot check, isn't it? We've decided to just get his magnifying glass out, pick at random some various things, and then you can actually ask your staff, you people that's managing this information, can I see some evidence that this is in place? And then your audit report can actually record the things that you've found. Okay. Now, in relation to the things that we've just discussed there, this audit report, effectively, once it's been written up, will allow you to document the fact that you've checked those things. So, as you can see by the middle section, because that's effectively the areas that we've looked at, the middle section then clarifies the things that we've looked at. It actually gives it in an evidence-based way. So if you ever wanted to trace this information back through, you can actually see the actual evidence that you've looked at, and you can make sure that whoever did the audit, they've actually looked at relevant information, they've recorded very specific details, so dates, they've maybe mentioned a name within that particular bit of evidence, or initials, and in some cases, obviously, they may be looking at 1, 2, or 3 bits of information. In this particular instance, they've looked at a daily note, and they've clarified the exact one that they've looked at. They've also clarified whether the delivery notes have been signed off and authorised. And as you can see, even just by looking at this middle bit under audit questions, it's almost like, what do we say we do? Well, all the bits and pieces that we highlighted in yellow is what we say we do. And then all the bits that's on the right is, this is what we found. And again, that's a really simple principle in actually creating your audit report. What do we say we do? This is what we found. And by documenting it there, that shows that to me, by everything's in place. So that would be classed as a successful audit. I think that there was no issues raised in that one. So that would generally indicate that the product and service provision process is actually working as it should be. And again, there are other bits and pieces to the top and bottom of the audit report. And again, that's just for reference there. It tells you the date that you carried out the audit, who the particular auditor was in this case, what particular part of the system you're looking at, what clause you're looking at. So again, that just gives anybody else that's looking at these internal audit reports confirmation and assurance that the audit's been carried out and that they've not found any issues. So we can assume for this particular spot check that particular process is working as it should be. Okay, then, so carrying out a project or product-based audit. Remember the example that I've given of a product being manufactured from raw materials. As I indicated earlier, you're following the flow of your operations. You're making sure that the right ingredients that have been made up to make that actual product itself, whether the mix designs, as an example, have been followed, whether you've got the right raw materials going in, the weights are correct. You can actually obviously follow that product through and just seeing what's happened at each stage from the product being taken off the production line, it being packaged. There are generally during production, there are various stages to that production, from the point of that being either boxed up, packaged up, and put on back of a wagon. So you can effectively follow that product and making sure that all the right components are being achieved by staff, and also that all the right documentations that's been filled in. Engineering companies are very much similar. When they're engineering products, they'll have job sheets. They're actually generating various checks and things going through that system. If you're thinking about a care company, when you're dealing with elderly or vulnerable, effectively there'll be various things that you need to do in order to make sure that you're providing the right products and services. And generally, that there'll be a paper, I'll call it a paper chase that you can follow, making sure that they've got the risk assessments, making sure that they're in at the right locations. Is a good example. Making sure that they've got the right care plan, making sure that they're actually being administered the right medication. So again, I'm generally using kind of a service provision and a manufacturing examples, but hopefully that should give you a good lead into carrying out a product or process-based audit. That nicely leads into things when you're carrying out an audit. For project-based audits, you can look at. In fact, you can look at the root causes of any issues going wrong with that process itself. Now, there are various tools out there for root cause analysis. I think generally when you look at internal audit, if that's identifying any non-conformances, shortfalls, generally people will want to understand why that's gone wrong, and by looking at your root cause and doing root cause analysis, no matter how complex or even how simple you want to make that, looking at the root cause will generally help you to correct that from going wrong in future. And this example, it's a Venn diagram generally, and the example shows there, if you're looking at various things in the process-based approach, you're looking at your products, it's looking at measurements, your methods of production, the people involved, the environment that it's set in, what machines that you've got, what materials. So even this particular example, you can drill down and think, right, okay, then for each one of those particular aspects that we're looking at, there are various things that could go wrong. And even if it's a case of looking at that and thinking, well, there's nothing wrong with our customer satisfaction, there's nothing wrong with our non-conformance, it might actually lead you into think that perhaps there is an issues in standard operating procedures. An example, it might be as a result of people following an incorrectly written procedure is why you're getting things wrong. It might be a specification thing when you're looking at materials, for example. So again, these are all tools that are widely used in industry, and I think really the main principle is root cause analysis. I generally like to keep it as simple as we can, but sometimes more complex processes will require this to be drilled down in a more methodical way. But the beauty of doing it in this way, you can actually get other employees involved and get their opinions on why these things may not be achieving in the way that you expect them to. So carrying out an internal audit, reviewing of the procedures in the management system to aid understanding. So that's obviously one of the key things in there, as we've mentioned a few times in there. You want to make sure that any processes, any procedures, any documents, specifications that you're using, any common ways of working, that they're being followed and that they're also in alignment with not only the company, but they're also in alignment with the standard requirements. You may be looking at the actual processes as they're actually being manufactured. As an example, you may actually sit in an office and watch a client file find its way around the office from it being from the initial inquiry going right through to the point that you generate a quotation or that order is actually put onto the system. A good example of this is if you have new employees into an organization while they're being taught a new process, it might be an idea to actually carry out an audit on that process, just so that you know that new employees can follow that process and that there's nothing wrong or there's not any inconsistencies with that process being delivered. While you're doing an audit, you're going to be examining records. We used the example earlier there of production and service provision on screen there. Again, there are various things that are written in either your management system manual or your processes that allude to certain records being used. So as an auditor, you need to examine those records and making sure that the correct information's being written down and recorded as part of any process that you're delivering. Excuse me. You're generally going to have conversations with members of staff, your purchasing manager as an example, or your office manager. They might be the people that are actually generating purchase orders, that are actually managing the paperwork side of it, making sure that your suppliers are that you're getting the invoices from the suppliers and that they're being paid. Accountants. So generally, it's an expectation during an audit that you are going to speak to other members of staff, and again, that can literally be shop floor members of staff, it can be admin staff, but it also might be going right all the way up to your senior management team, so your CEOs, your directors. Effectively, an auditor should be almost there to ask any questions, and obviously your members of staff should be there to help that auditor in getting the information and the answers, generally what they want as part of the audit. And generally, those people will be able, the auditor, to acquire the evidence that they need in the most efficient way possible. So when we look at types of evidence, that there are various types of evidence, as you can imagine. Most of that evidence will be listed either in your process documents, in your quality manuals, in your procedures that you may have any written procedures. It might even be part of a contract that you have to generate certain documentation, test certificates, etc. So again, that there's a multitude of evidence, and generally that evidence will be referenceable within those processes, procedures, quality manuals, health and safety manuals, common procedures manuals. All these things will generally indicate the kind of evidence that's expected to be looked at in an audit. So you may have statement of facts. So a conversation in an audit may just be a conversation, and generally by the person that you're having that conversation with, it's a representation of facts as part of it. Observations of ongoing activities, you may just watch something going through the production. You may watch people filling out paperwork and then be ensuring that that's being done as it should be doing. You may look at corrective actions and preventative action records, non-conformances, complaints, fault records, things like that may be evidenceable in an audit. You actually might be looking at internal audit records that were carried out last year. You may be looking at audit records carried out by other people within the organization. You may be looking at a product audit record that supports the process that you're trying to investigate. You may look at quality meeting records, management review meeting records, KPIs, and data and information records, bar charts. These are all things that you may evidence as part of monitor and measurement, for example. You may look at business development, marketing and sales records, new product developments, design and development records, production and service provision records, delivery records, quality control records, purchasing records. It's quite interesting in the number of records that each standard requires. As an example, for your quality management system, it really relates to a lot of the records that we've talked about. If you're thinking about an environmental management system, it's going to be records that are more environmentally orientated. So things like environmental risk assessments, aspects and impacts registers. It may be that you do land surveys, so that again, it all might be part and parcel of that. Health and safety, predominantly risk assessments, isn't it? Method statements, health and safety meetings. So each standard that people may be engaging with will have different types of evidence, and it's up to you as auditors or potential auditors to think about what evidence that you're going to need. And again, generally, the actual management system standard will identify the types of documents that are required or should be expected, and so will any of the internal procedures, processes, documents, manuals that you've got. That'll also generally allude to the types of documents that you're maintaining. So when we've had a look at this audit evidence, we've collated this information, we've written up an audit report, we've got a set of facts, be it what we expected or not, and generally you generally then represent that audit to the management team, or at least to the team that's involved in some of the processes that you've audited. And I think one of the key things, if you've identified anything in that audit that's not really gone as planned, that is not following a particular system, process or procedure, then generally the non-conformances will generally be highlighted as part of that audit. And if you generally identify non-conformances, you have the discussion of what needs to be done to correct that so it doesn't happen again. You may need to set extensions for any previous actions that have not been fulfilled. So sometimes when things have been raised in audits previously, we find out that actually it's actually been missed and we've not followed up on it, which basically means we've got a lack of corrective and preventative action. Identify it that that's the case, put in another plan, and just make sure that over the chosen selected period of time that you're actually looking at and addressing it. If you're not looking at and addressing it after identifying it one or two times, generally that may indicate that you need more commitment towards the management system itself and for correcting and improving your system. Again, part of that audit process, the feedback process, is describing what you found. Make it understandable to the audience that you sat there with, why you think some of those actions have occurred. And I think being positive about it, maybe not necessarily centering on just the fact that something's gone wrong. I think what's important is how we're dealing with it and what we're doing to correct it so we get it right in future and so that it doesn't continue happening. And then again, in that summing up meeting or that communication and feedback, you can refer to the actual objectives, findings and related evidence. And generally, if you've written that up in an audit report as you're required to do, generally that will actually help you summarize those audits and actually summarize the bits and pieces specifically. If they've gone wrong, you can actually relate it to a particular area or function. And then obviously, if you do need to carry out any changes to your management system as a result of any non-conformances, you can identify what documentation needs to be updated following on from that process. It's almost like a continuous cycle that never ends. You plan to do things, you check that they're working. If they're not working, you take action to correct them. And again, this plan, do, check, act. It's effectively it's a continual circle whereby you will, as an organisation, you will hopefully drive improvement through your organisation. The minute that you do some planning, you check it and it's working, and you've got no need to act, it circumvents that particular section there, and it allows you to go back to planning more things. So it's plan, do, check, and there is no act, so you go plan, do, check, plan, do, check. And the moment that almost that circle removes that need to act, that's where you're effectively drive improvement within your organization. So as I mentioned earlier, QMS do offer internal audit training as part of their offering. I mean, if anybody would like to ask about that or get more information about those internal audit training, it can be tailor-made to your organisation. You can have various members of your staff there present, and as I say, it can be tailored to a general internal audit for the whole management system, or if you require a bit more experience, for example, in a purchasing process, and you want to drill down into that, the actual internal audit training can be customized towards your organization's needs. And again, that can be customized for a number of days or even just a one day. So anybody that feels stuck or a bit nervous about internal audit training, we've got a great team there that can help you. Feel free to get in touch with the marketing team with the email address that's there, which you'll be getting a copy of this presentation anyway afterwards. So all the details and the links to there will be available. So again, if any organizations are just going down the road, or they want to hone the skills and make their audits more efficient, maybe they've struggled in the past or not, effectively we've got a training program there that we can help with if you so desire. So there's some useful links towards the back end of the presentation there. Feel free to get in touch about the training. Feel free to get in touch about any certifications. If you haven't currently got any certifications and you think it's going to be useful for your business, you can get in touch with QMS through any of the links that's effectively on there. I know that we had a poll which will be actually going on for a few moments after the webinar. QMS Connect there is effectively a management system that puts all of your process documents effectively into an electronic system now. So if any of you have already got management systems and you're thinking about you want to bring it up to the 21st century, effectively QMS Connect is a product that we offer, and we can help you with that if you're not already on Connect as part of the certification process if you're already with QMS. So that brings us towards the end of the webinar itself. Now, I obviously at this point in time, I do offer the chance for everybody that's attending to ask any questions, no matter how small, how big, how silly, how serious. It's better to get those questions out there, and if I can obviously answer and alleviate any problems or issues or anything out there, that concerns that people may have, please feel free to ask those questions. It is one of my favorite parts of the session. So I do think that the questions have been up. So Judith, thanks for this question. So you mentioned an external auditor or someone now involved with the actual process. So we are a small to medium enterprise, and I'm the only person who has been allocated the role of auditor. Is that acceptable? I'm not involved in the IMS day-to-day workings, so I'm not biased. I do ask the relevant staff members about anything necessary. So I think you are a small enterprise, and we understand that resourcing can be limited within some organizations, especially smaller organizations. So you've been allocated the role as the auditor in itself. I mean, I think when you look at something like 27001, which is information security, the good thing about the information security standard, it's broken down almost granularly, so you can look at things on almost like an individual basis in terms of each of the requirements. Now, I'm guessing here that even if you're carrying out the audits, it's effectively, Judith, it's about looking at your process documents or your manual, and that is almost like the roadmap, isn't it? So that's almost like your Bible for how your 27001 management system's running. Now, if you can ask questions about what it says in that manual or what it says in those processes, and you can ask the right questions, then it is acceptable for you to be in the role of auditor. Number one, you are independent by the sounds of things. You may not have essential day-to-day running of certain workings of the 27001, but I'm hoping that the experience in your business and maybe some of the suppliers and support engineers, for example, will have that experience. So you'll be able to draw on their knowledge and actually get evidence from them. I work through each policy and check that each is being adhered to. Again, that's a good way of checking your management system and seeing whether it's working. I think with the 27001, Judith, it's not just about policies. That is a part of it. I think you've also got your statement of applicability, which is a really good document that'll help you ask the right questions. And then you've obviously, as you said there, you've got your policies, and then you've got your what I'd class as your main processes, i.e. the front end of either the manual of the processes. So that's things like planning and risk management, operations, the actual internal audit, the management review. I think again, it is a difficult one if you feel almost alone and you feel as though you're out on a limb. But I think as long as you've got a reference manual or a set of processes that you're following, and you've got a statement of applicability, that should help you at random spot check certain things by asking questions and doing those interviews, as I explained in part of the webinar itself. So I'm hoping that's answered your question, Judith. Feel free to ask, obviously, any follow-up questions if you'd like me to drill down into anything particular that either worries you or bothers you as part of that 27001 audit. So this is from Jess. Thanks for your question. Do we need to audit every part of our company? We are a construction company, so do we need to audit all of the office procedures that don't relate to the construction process, like hiring? Well, I think in the first instance, Jess, look at your management system itself. Now, again, I don't know whether you're on a process-based approach or whether you've got a quality manual as an example, but your quality manual will identify under each clause area various topics or various bits of evidence that's, for example, used as part of your training process. So I'd follow what your management system documents are saying, rather than necessary thinking about you need to audit every single process and procedure. And I think one thing that's probably important to look at is you may have 20 overall procedures, as in that deliver your construction process. So it might be, for example, how you maintain a wagon, how you lay concrete, how you, for example, pour concrete, how you use chemicals. Now, yes, that is important, but that all falls under generally your operations or operational control, and you would only sort of spot check 3 or 4 of those. Now, your office processes and procedures will generally align with your quality manual. So again, I think it's a mixture of both, really. under your service provision, you will generally find that you're auditing your office procedures, whereas your operational control or operations process, that'll be things like what you do in your constructions process. And actually, the example that you've given there, like hiring, you may actually find that hiring new employees or subcontractors, that might actually fall under your purchasing process. So I think a good thing to do is have a read over your quality manual. I'm going to actually assume that it is a quality management system that you've got there. Have a read through your quality manual or your quality management system processes, and that will identify the main internal procedures that's involved in delivering those products and services, that's involved in making sure you've got operational control, and involved in, for example, the likes of the activities that are involved when you're purchasing. So I am hoping that's answered again Jess's question there. Feel free to elaborate on that any more if you feel as though you need to. I'll be certainly happy to help on that one. Any more questions? I think that's done for Jess. So we've got a question there from Marie. Will the slides be available to use as reference at a later date? Absolutely. So one of the things, just sort of before we close, I mean, I think it's fair that we mention it now. Everybody attending the webinar today will receive a copy of those slides. Obviously, the later slides will give you some links there for you to be able to get in touch with our marketing team. There's links there for the website, etc. So you can have a look at any reference material that may even support any existing management systems that you've got. But ultimately, yes, you'll receive a copy of the slides, and then I think later down the line, within a couple of days, you'll probably get an email as well referring to the actual webinar itself. So you'll be able to watch the webinar again if you think that you've missed something. So you'll be able to re-watch over that as well. So in short, yes, the answer is yes on that one. Thanks, Marie. Any more questions? Colleen, okay then. So where can we find more examples of completed audits? I struggle with the scope, for example. It is a good question. Generally, you could always generally have a conversation with people in the past that have done the audits, what's expected. You could also, if you have an external auditor come in like a member of QMS, you could have a conversation with them and get a general feeling for what's expected when you look at the scope. Generally, if we use the main principle of an audit report identifies what we say we do, what it is that we found, you could effectively look at the scope and just ask yourself, is that scope in our manual still relevant? Is it up to date? And is it included on our certificate, and is it still relevant? It's almost asking yourself a series of short questions to make sure that it reflects what we do. And again, I think without being too complicated, there's a wealth of information within the QMS website. So I think if you looked on the QMS website, there's quite a lot of support materials. There's various presentations, and you might be able to pick up on some examples that have been written up as part of that support material. So feel free to access the QMS website by all means. And obviously do a search for internal audits or internal auditing. And you may be surprised, obviously, there what you find. There's usually a lot of resources, both current and sort of historical resources as well. So I'm hoping that's answered your question. Any more questions? Let me just have a look on my list there. I think everybody's, I'll just give everybody just 30 seconds. If there's any more questions that anybody would like me to cover, please do so. But if not, that generally completes the webinar for today on internal auditing. I hope that you've all found some useful benefit from that one. As I said earlier, the presentation slides will be available to you after the webinar. I think our marketing team will be sending those out to your emails, etc. So find that. So the basic closeout now. We're going to have the rest of the poll there. So if anybody didn't get a chance to answer that poll earlier, feel free to just quickly answer that. And that's just in reference to our QMS Connect portal that we now generate that management system documentation and help set up templates and things throughout there. Yep, I would like to also thank everybody for attending today. Hopefully, as I say, it's been useful. I would also like to thank our marketing team, especially Claire and also Daniel there, that's been doing the work in the background to help make sure that the webinars are available for everybody present. I'll just give everybody another 30 seconds to allow that poll to end, and as I say, thanks everybody for attending today. If you do have any questions, further questions, you can get in touch with QMS through the links that are provided through the webinar slides. And you can also probably find the link that you initially got the invite from the webinar itself. I think that there's information that you can get in touch there. I appreciate everybody's time, and that concludes the webinar for today. Thanks ever so much. Goodbye.